Okay, well today we'll be playing Heroes of the Gap. This is a lock and load game designed by Mark H. Walker, and it's from Lock and Load Publishing Games. This was released a couple of years ago. It's based on their squad level combat games. They've released quite a few other ones, such as their World War II game Band of Heroes, also a Falklands based game called Ring of Hills. There's also Heroes of the Blitzkrieg, which is France versus Germany in the early World War II stage. Heroes of the Gap, the setting here is 1985 World War III. This is set in the fictional World at War universe, based on the good old World at War Eisenbach Gap game and its expansions. Heroes of the Gap is a really good game. It's one of my favorites. Inside you get about 10 scenarios. You also get some special rules for both the Soviets and the Americans. And you also get some new stuff like airstrikes and stuff like that. It's pretty good. It's probably one of my favorites. The scenario that we're going to be playing today is air assault, and this is the first day of World War III, and it takes place on May 14th, 1985, and happens at 6 a.m. What happens here is the Soviets are starting their invasion of West Germany, and the Americans are sort of caught surprised by it. The scenario objective here for the Soviets is to capture these three buildings down here, and the Americans have to stop them from claiming it. I'm going to talk about the forces available to each side in a moment here. So starting off, looking at the forces for the Americans, on the left here we have Sergeant York and 3 squads. They're 264 squads with 2 M60s, 40mm grenade launcher, and a Law anti-tank rocket. These are the initial American forces that can be placed anywhere in Eisenbach in the buildings. The Americans get some reinforcements starting on turn 4, and these reinforcements consist of Lieutenant Moore, pretty good leader with 2 value for leadership. We've got 3 squads, and we get some nice weapons here. We get an M60, Law, a 40, and a Stinger anti-aircraft missile. We also get a few vehicles here. We've got an M1 tank, which should come in handy, and we've got 2 M113s. Soviets, if we look up here, well, they get a few helicopters here. They get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 helicopters. 4 of these are Mi-8 HIP transport helicopters, and 1 is an Mi-24 Hind helicopter. Quite devastating. The Soviets also get a airstrike, an Su-25 airstrike, and when you roll doubles, the airstrike will come in. So you're not sure when this airstrike is gonna actually launch. Neither side really knows. For units, for ground units, we've got 3 leaders: Trinov, Sorokin, and Petrov, I think. And we have 2 RPKs, which are excellent melee weapons. We've got a PKM machine gun, and 2 RPG-16s, which could probably come in handy against American vehicles. As far as squads go, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 3, 3, 4 squads. These are Spetsnaz squads. Extremely deadly in terms of melee. Not a very high range here. We've only got a 3 range. We've also got 2 264 squads. That are quite good. I usually use those for RPG squads. And then up here we have AT-3 Sager anti-tank missile. So those are our starting squads. We're going to first place the Americans on the board, and then we're going to have the Soviets sweep in with their helicopter landings. So here we go. Okay, well, I've set up my American units here now in Eisenbach, and I've selected one building in particular. The building is not actually near any of the objectives. This is on purpose. This is to draw the Soviets away from their objectives so that they're out of position by turn 4. I don't have a lot of hope that these units are going to last long. They're going to be coming under attack from helicopters and airstrikes early in the game. Chances are they're not going to last very long, so I'm just putting them there as bait to draw the Soviets out and hopefully catch them with my reinforcements. I'll just zoom in here, and what you can see is I've got a multi-level building here on the northeast side of Eisenbach, and I've got Sergeant York and his 2 squads on the upper levels of the building, and Sergeant York has a squad with a 40mm and an M60, and this squad here has a law rocket. Can't do much with it. You cannot fire ordnance in a building, so it's just got it basically there. It would have to move out of the building to be able to actually use it. And another squad with an M60 here. So the Soviets are about to make their first incursion into West Germany and try to grab Eisenbach. We'll take a look at how that goes. So I've got the Soviets all ready to go now for their invasion, and here's how I've sort of got the forces all figured out. For each helicopter I have some forces loaded onto them. For the Hind it can't carry that much, so I've put an AT-3 Sager crew with them, and I'm probably going to put them on a hill north of Eisenbach just to hit at any tanks that are coming in long range. Over here I have 2 264s in an Mi-8 hip, and they both have RPG-16s. I'll probably put them in a bush or forest area to the west of Eisenbach just to hit out at any American tank units that are reinforcing. Down here I've got my main Spetsnaz troops, and I have 3 Mi-8 helicopters here. The first one is Captain Sorokin, with his 2 Spetsnaz squads. And they'll be assigned to take out the Americans. That's their job. And the other 2 groups here both have 2 squads here. Trinov and Petrov both have 2 Spetsnaz squads, and they'll be assigned to take 2 objectives. So Sorokin is going to be busy while the other 2 are just grabbing objectives. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, turn 1 of Air Assault is just finished, and things didn't really go quite as planned for the Soviets. First thing they did was they sent over an Mi-24 Hind right at this building, right going for the Americans here, and the Americans, they have to make a morale roll in order to activate in the first turn. Which they did. This one unit did manage to make its roll and fired at the adjacent Mi-24, but to no effect. Ended up with Sergeant York getting shaken up, and I believe the squad he was with got shaken up too. So I sent a follow-on Mi-8 hip with Captain Sorokin here. And they went adjacent to these guys over here in this part of the building, and this squad made its morale roll too. So as soon as the helicopter got adjacent to the building, spotted the Americans and went to fire, the Americans shot back and managed to shake up the helicopter, which is a big problem. So the helicopter's hovering there right now and shaken up, and it can't do much of anything. So I had to send in another Mi-8 hip to try to take this building, and I sent it over right here, and it managed to get adjacent to this unit. Well, there was a unit here. The American unit that was here did not make its morale roll, and the Mi-8 basically just hit it with rockets and machine guns and completely eliminated it. Around that time, an Su-25 Frogfoot got called in for air support, and it bombed the hell out of this building. hitting these two hexes with cannons and this hex with bomb, and managed to shake up this unit and I think this squad as well. So yeah, these units here, these American units, are both shaken up. Unfortunately, that took a lot of resources to get those guys taken care of. Once I had those guys pretty much where I wanted them, all shaken up or reduced or eliminated, I started the other landings. The first thing I did was send Trinov with his two Spetsnaz squads here to one of the capture points, and they ran into the building and grabbed the objective. There's two other objectives here that the Soviets need to grab and keep, which hopefully they'll do soon. Over to the west, did another landing here. Mi-8 hip landed here and dropped off two 264 units. These both have RPG-16s, and I'm hoping to keep them here in the western part of the board, because that's where the American reinforcements are going to be coming from on turn 4. So that's a basic look at what's happening here. The Soviets had to commit more than I thought they would need to commit in order to take this building up here. I still haven't quite taken it, but they're doing a good job now of reducing and shaking up the Americans. The Soviets have one objective they've grabbed. They still need to grab two, and the RPG units are where I want them. The Mi-8 hip helicopters, there's 4 of them. They need to be off the board at the end of turn 2, so there's not much I can do with them. I can basically fly them off the board and make a parting shot as I'm going. So that should be helpful. But my main objective here is to, in turn 2, is to grab this building, eliminate all the rest of the Americans, and grab these buildings. I gotta hurry back over here and start preparing for the Americans to arrive. So let's see if we can do that. Okay, end of turn 2 here, and started off finding out something interesting. That damaged helicopters, such as the one that was damaged last turn with Sorokin and his 2 squads. Anyways, damaged helicopters must leave the board immediately, and they cannot unload their passengers. So I've lost that those units. I've lost them from the game, which really sucks. It's really that's going to make things really tough for the Soviets. Despite having lost those guys, however, the Soviets did manage to pump enough rockets and machine guns from their helicopters into the building where the Americans were, and then they followed it up with melee from I think who was it? Petrov? Yeah, Petrov and his guys managed to get in there and eliminate the remnants of the Americans in the building. So the Soviets now have taken out all of the Americans on the board. They've got to now hustle around the board and prepare to meet the reinforcements that are coming in 2 turns. And this is a big job right now because, as you can see, these 2 objectives are still left unclaimed, and the AT-3 Sager up here that's loaded onto the Mi-24 has to be dismounted and prepped for the incoming tanks. So that's all got to happen. Down south, we did have some stuff happen. At one of the objectives, Trinov and his men decided to place themselves into the building and get ready for the Americans to attack. So these guys have their objective all ready and ready to defend, and they're in place. I've just got to worry about what to do with my limited number of guys now. So let's see how that pans out in the next few turns. Okay, end of turn 3 now, and we've got some movement now on the board. Major Petrov and one of his squads has now moved south from the building they were in after meleeing the Americans last turn, and they're heading on down to their objectives right here to capture them very soon. Everybody else is pretty much sitting tight. We did have some movement also from the Hind helicopter, so the Hind is now located up here to the far north, and it has unloaded its AT-3 Sager team right on the edge of the hill there, hoping to catch the Americans coming in next turn. So next turn is turn 4, and we've got quite a few American reinforcements coming in. If the Americans can manage to capture any of these objectives and hold the Soviets off till turn 6, then they win. If the Soviets can hold on to those objectives, however, all 3 of them, then the Americans lose. So let's see how things go. Next turn should be quite interesting. Okay, well, it's the end of turn 4, and geez, what didn't happen this turn? It started off with the Americans getting initiative, sending in an infantry unit right on the edge of the board. And they used their assault movement to fire their Stinger missile right at the Mi-24 Hind that was way up here. You could see the crash marker. It was a successful shot. They rolled a 4 and managed to hit it. And the Mi-24 was blown out of the sky. Next up, the Soviets decided to send their guys here into their objectives. So they're covering the objectives there. M1 tank came on the board to the west, right here, right onto the board, and took some fire from the AT-3 Sager team up on the hill here, just by the crash site of the helicopter. The anti-tank missile missed the M1, and the anti-tank missile was out of ammo, which was nice for the Americans. Otherwise, the Americans had some good success getting their M113s, their loaded M113s onto the board. They took some fire from the Soviet RPG teams that were stationed to the west, but generally speaking, they managed to sneak 2 M113s into town. One M113 APC took fire from the Soviet Spetsnaz at this objective and was shaken. But the other M113 got through here. I've got one RPG team that's kind of moved back to try to cover anything that happens in town. It's going to probably continue moving back the next turn. I probably should have just gotten one of my squads here into this objective or near it, but it's kind of just hindsight at this point. I really don't know what's going to happen. If this M113 can't unshake soon, then these guys are the only ones I've got to take and try to seize objectives, which is probably not enough. So everything is kind of right on the edge of a blade at this point. We've got 2 turns left. Let's see where things go. Okay, turn 5 has just ended, and both sides are kind of in a sticky situation right now. Things started off with the Americans moving their M1 straight into the middle of town here, and it couldn't assault move. It was way on the edge of the board, so it just kind of sat in the center of town. But the important thing here is that it has line of sight to all of the objectives right now. So next turn it should be able to fire wherever it needs to fire. The thing about this point of the game is that you're basically trying to fake out the Soviets and keep them guessing as to where you're going to unload your guys. So you can see I've got most of my guys sitting here in the center of town. I rushed one M113 with a squad over this way, and the M113 got shaken up. I was hoping to put them here into this building and then maybe assault into there next turn, but with the M113 shaken up, that was out of the question. My guys with the rocket launcher, the Soviets with the rocket launchers, the RPG-16, ended up moving into a building right here. So next turn, it's kind of at a stage where it could fire at either of these vehicles and poses a real danger, as the M1 has its rear exposed right now to this RPG team. Elsewhere I had This M113 got shaken up by a squad here, a Soviet Spetsnaz squad here, and I ended up just disembarking my guys here, Lieutenant Moore and his squad. Disembarked them, and they're in a good position right now. They've got cover from the M1 in the same hex, and they could make a rush over here, into here, or over into here next turn. So they're in a really good position to make a jump into any one of the objectives. So that was pretty good in terms of making sure that the Soviets need to cover their bases here. We really don't want you know, all of the squads to merge in on one objective and defend it, because there's no way we could take it as the Americans. Absolutely no way. There's been some opportunity fire here, but no one's been shaken up, except for the M113s at this point. So turn 6 is coming up, and that's going to be the end game. So we're going to see where the Americans try to go here, and it's looking pretty tight here. The Americans could just kind of rush in here and then hope to fend off the Soviets in a melee. The Americans could try their luck here, trying to get to this objective and jumping in and winning a melee. If these guys can unshake, they can cause some big problems here for these guys. It's a big question mark at this point. Both sides have a pretty good position to be able to do what they need to do. So it may just come down to the luck of the roll at this point. So let's move on to turn 6 and see how things go. Well, it's the end of turn 6, and the game has just ended. It was an exciting end of the game. Things went right down to the wire. It started off with American initiative, which was great for them. They basically started off trying to unload these guys adjacent to this victory hex, and got fired upon by the Soviets here and were shaken up as they dismounted from the APC. So the Soviets took a shot at the M1 here with their RPG-16. There was a rear shot, and they managed to... They couldn't destroy it, but they did end up shaking it up. And that was a close call. So the Americans were left with one squad with Lieutenant Moore, who made a rush for this hex. And they took some opportunity fire, but were not shaken up. So they managed to get along this bridge here and over into this hex, where they went into a melee with the Soviets, a 334 with an M60 machine gun that was stolen from the Americans earlier in the scenario. So it was a 1-to-1, straight up 1-to-1 melee, and the Americans completely eliminated the Soviets in the hex, but the Soviets also eliminated them. So with that, the hopes of the Americans kind of were dashed. There were no remaining American infantry on the board to really claim any objectives. And with all of these vehicles shaken up, none of them made their rally rolls during the beginning of the rally phase here. They were unable to prevent, I think it was Major Petrov from coming from this objective hex and moving into this final one where the melee had occurred and the Americans and Soviets had eliminated each other in the previous melee. So the Soviets managed to gain back control of this victory hex. And that was it. I mean, kind of a cheap way of winning, I suppose, but the Soviets did pull it off, even though they had lost Captain Sorokin and his squads early in the game after receiving a shaken helicopter roll, or damaged helicopter roll. It was tight. Very, very nicely crafted scenario. I have to say, a lot of people say that that this is maybe a little unbalanced because the Americans just get wiped out in the first part of the game. But this was balanced quite nicely, and I thought both sides had a really good shot at winning just at the end. And it's just too bad that the Americans, despite doing some great stuff, having some great luck, trying out some interesting ideas, just couldn't really pull it off. They did not have the manpower to get what they needed at the end. And so this one goes right to the Soviets. One thing about this scenario, air assault, it's a terrific scenario. It's a great way to learn the helicopter rules, which are really easy. They're not that complicated. I think a lot of people tend to overcomplicate the helicopter rules, but once you really get a handle on them, they're quite smooth. I used to spend a long time trying to figure them out, and once I sort of wrapped my brain around it, it was actually quite easy. Helicopters have unlimited movement. They can pretty much do everything they want. They can move, go into hover mode, fire, drop off troops, all within one phase, and switch modes once every round. So it's not that hard. I really recommend trying it. If you've been avoiding this scenario because of the air rules, don't. It's actually quite simple, and it's a great way to learn those rules. Anyway, that's it for Air Assault, and I hope you enjoyed watching the video. And if you really did, then please subscribe to the channel, and I'll keep you updated on any further games I play. So thanks a lot.